Hospitalized? What are you talking about?
You just don't want to cook dinner. Don't make excuses.
These were the words my mother-in-law told me. I was on my way to the hospital because of labor. My mother-in-law called me numerous times. I had no choice but to head back on pain. My husband and mother-in-law didn't care that I was about to go into labor. I arrived back at my parents' house, but I collapsed and was carried to the emergency room. Even though both my husband and mother-in-law didn't seem concerned about me, I had been patient so far. However, I decided to make a move that I could no longer be a family with these people. I am Kate, 33 years old. I work in an office and am current maternity leave. My husband David and I got married ago. He's the same age as me, and we met at a speed dating party. When I saw him for the first time, my type, but he was very easy to talk to. I was extremely shy. I have been to speed dating parties, but I was so nervous that I couldn't even speak in a short time. But I was able to enjoy talking with my husband from the very beginning. I exchanged contact information for time that day. We went out for dinner a few times. It was just like when we first met. The time passed quickly each time. We seemed to have the same taste in food, and we could go out to eat together, which would have been difficult for me to do alone. I couldn't wait for the weekend to see my husband. We decided to become a couple after times of our meetups. After a year of dating, we decided married. In the early days of our marriage, we talked as much as we did when we were dating. I would hurry to finish work and go home because I wanted to talk to Maya as soon as possible. Eating dinner and talking about that happened during the day was my part of the day. Every day, I felt so happy. Although there was one thing I didn't like about being married. It was the dinners at my parents' in-laws' house. I cook dinner and we all have dinner together. My in-laws' house is about a 20-minute drive from ours. I don't like my mother-in-law. She is usually kind, but I don't know if she starts to get angry. Once I make her angry, she will verbally abuse me. When I went to greet them, before Master, everything went peacefully from start finish. I arrived at their place in the early afternoon, but it wasn't until the evening that I noticed.
You should eat dinner too. I'm going to cook a feast for you.
My mother-in-law suddenly said to me. I felt bad for her having to cook dinner for us.
Please don't bother about me.
I'm telling you to eat.
She said it in a loud voice. I was so surprised that all I could apologize. My husband did not defend me, and while we were waiting for the food, he accused me.
Why did you say no to her earlier? Don't you feel sorry for my mother?
I was so confused because he seemed a different person from what I knew. It was my father-in-law who resolved a tension.
Where are you from, Kate?
He asked me a question when he saw me puzzled. After the meal was ready, my mother-in-law acted very upset and seemed to be angry with me too. It was awkward, but my father-in-law asked me a lot of questions and made me feel more comfortable. When I was talking to my father-in-law and mother-in-law, they were initially silent, but then joined in the conversation. So eventually, we were able to enjoy together. My husband never said anything to me left. Although, even after that, my mother often gets angry, and my husband always takes her side. Each time, my father-in-law helped.
I'm sorry that she has a short temper. You don't have to worry about it, okay?
He sneaked up on me and said to me, I get nervous every time we go to the weekly dinner, worry about making my mother-in-law mad. Even though I'm being careful, my mother-in-law gets angry. When I get home, I'm exhausted. That's why I don't feel like going, but I put up with it, as my husband looked forward to it every week.
For the dinner party, what are you going to cook this time?
I love my husband when we are alone, but I don't like him much when we are in-laws' house. Then one day, I found out I was pregnant. The morning sickness was so bad that took days off from work.
Are you okay? Call me right away if you have any.
The morning of the day, I missed world. My husband went to a convenience store to get me something to eat. He said kind words to me and left. It was hard, but my husband felt better after a while. That week, I wasn't feeling well, so I didn't go to work. When I cooked, the smell made me sick, so I thought it was impossible to have a dinner party on the weekend. I thought my husband would but he said,
Take a good rest today so we can dinner party tomorrow.
in the morning before he left for work, he had a cup of coffee.
Well, I think I can't make it tomorrow. The smell of the food would make me.
I refused the dinner party since we got married. Then my husband got furious and said, I'm not going to let you do this.
What are you saying? My mother looks forward to it every. You promised that you would take me to an announcement party when I got pregnant. Bear it for just one day.
It was the first time I had seen my husband get angry, except at his in-laws. I wondered if the dinner party was important. We had talked about going there to the pregnancy, but that was before morning sickness got this bad.
Sorry.
Was too sick to talk back. I apologized, trying to calm my husband's anger. He left the house without saying any. I was a little emotionally unstable, so I couldn't stop crying in bed after that. That night, he came home from work the same kind husband he always was. The next day, we went to my parents' house. On the hour-long drive, I felt sick many times and had to take breaks. My husband was worried about me, but he suggested turning back home. We bought some food and arrived at my in-laws.
Welcome.
My mother-in-law happily came to greet the door. Before cooking dinner, we told them pregnancy.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. I want a boy.
My mother-in-law was very happy.
Take care of yourself and have a healthy baby.
My father-in-law also said that my husband was happy to see his parents pleased. I was happy that they were happy to see me when I was sick. I could barely make a fake smile. After that, I felt so many times sick while cooking. I sat down to take a break and cooked, wearing a mask to avoid smelling the food. I heard my husband and mother-in-law happily chatting away without even looking at me. My father-in-law noticed that I was not feeling well and came to the kitchen.
Morning sickness. You are here to report your pregnancy. I'm sorry to make you cook when you don't feel well. You don't have to do it next week. Does this supposed to go on this plate?
He said and helped me with the dishes. I was so happy, I almost cried. I wish my husband had said sorry to me. My mother-in-law didn't seem to care that my father-in-law was helping me. When the meal started, I was so nervous that I couldn't eat.
Kate, why don't you eat?
My mother-in-law asked me,
I could only answer, I'm sorry. My sickness is so bad.
and then
If you don't eat, your baby won't G nutrients. Eat even if you don't want to.
she said with a very scary face. My husband also said,
That is right. Stop making excuses and eat.
I tried to force myself to eat, but taking a bite, I ran to the bathroom.
We are eating. That is gross.
I heard my mother-in-law's angry voice outside. I couldn't stop crying. I don't know how long I was When I finally felt better, my mother-in-law calmed down. My father-in-law must have said something here. I was grateful to my father-in-law, but disappointed that my husband didn't seem to care. After that, no matter how bad my mood swings were, dinner parties were the highlight of the week. I wanted to refuse many times, but my husband would be furious, so I could do nothing. One day at one of the dinner parties, we reported that we were having a girl. My mother-in-law said, I'm not going to be able to come to your wedding.
Oh, I wanted a boy.
She was not angry, though.
I know. I'm sorry.
For some reason, My husband apologizes to me. I didn't understand why he was apoplectic. My dissatisfaction with my husband to grow. Although he is kind at home, everything started to seem like a lie. However, I had no choice but to put it on hold when I thought about the baby I was carrying. Every day, I wished only that this H be born safely. The baby was growing steadily, and the last month of pregnancy. The baby could be born any time now. I had prepared my belongings so that I could be hospitalized at any time. But the weekly dinner parties were being held. On the morning of the dinner party, contractions. The intervals were still long, so I need to go to the hospital yet. But I wasn't sure when I had to.
I had contractions. Won't go no matter what you say.
I told my husband in a strong tone. I thought it was more important to baby safely than not to make him aunt.
Screw you. You're looking fine.
My husband got very angry, as I expected.
I won't go no matter what you say to. What if something happens to the bat?
For the first time in my marriage, back to my husband. While I was talking back, a contractor and I crouched down.
Enough. I'll go by myself.
My husband said and left. He didn't seem to care about my crying, but I thought it would be better to go with him. About an hour after he left, I decided to take a cab to the hospital as contraction got frequent. When I got into the cab, I told my mother-in-law that I had called her. I looked at my phone and saw dozens of incoming calls.
Hello?
I gathered all my strength and answered the phone.
Come home quickly and cook dinner now.
She yelled at me as soon as I picked up the phone.
I'm on my way to the hospital for a pain.
I told her, but there was no way she could understand.
Hospital?
From the other end of the phone.
It's just a stomach ache. You just don't want to make dinner. Don't make excuses.
I heard my husband's voice.
Come straight home now.
The mother-in-law did not stop.
Okay, I understand.
I had no choice but to obey. I was so ashamed of myself. I couldn't stop crying from pain or sadness. The cab driver was puzzled when I to change the destination. I managed to arrive at the house and went inside, feeling dizzy. I couldn't stop sweating. As soon as I arrived, my mother-in-law started yelling at me, but I honestly don't remember what. I think I was dazed. I did hear my father-in-law calling an ambulance. The next thing I knew, I was in the room at the hospital. I was still in a daze because of Eve that had happened. I was desperate to deliver my baby. When I heard the baby's voice, I lost all strength in my body.
It's a healthy girl.
When the obstetrician told me that my daughter's face, I cried with Ree. After delivering the baby, my father-in-law came into the room. He said,
I am glad she was born safely. Congratulations. You did a great job.
I said,
You called an ambulance for me, didn't you? Thank you.
my husband was not there. When I noticed it was dark outside, was midnight already. I was so tired that I fell asleep. When I woke up, my parents were there.
Congratulations, Kate. I am so relieved. You are looking great.
I was going to call my parents before on the delivery, but I didn't have to do it. My father-in-law contacted my parents. When I saw my parents' faces, I told them about my husband and mother.
Why didn't you tell me earlier? I cannot forgive them.
My father was angry, and my mother was crying.
It must have been hard. You endured a lot.
Then my father-in-law brought my mother-in-law and my husband.
What would you have done if something had happened to my daughter and granddaughter?
My father yelled at him, but my husband said,
No, no. The baby was born safely. Of course I care about my child, but I also care about my mother. I think it's Kate's fault for not being clear enough.
David is right. Family dinners are important. I also didn't know Kate was close to her due date because she didn't say anything about it.
My mother-in-law also said something strange. My father tried to grab my husband, heard it, But I told them,
I don't want to hear it anymore. I have to take care of my daughter today. Please, leave.
my mother-in-law and my husband shared their shoulders and left the room.
I am truly sorry. I will talk to both of them. Well,
My father-in-law said something and then left the room. After that, while taking care of I talked with my parents about it seems I had been brainwashed by constant yelling. When I saw the face of my newborn, I thought I had to be strong. I had to protect her no matter what. My mother visited me every day and with me all day, so I felt relaxed. Then the day came that I was discharged from the hospital. I headed with my parents to the house where my husband was waiting. I asked my father-in-law to bring my mother-in-law too. When we arrived at home, I asked my watch, my daughter, in a separate rock.
Welcome back, Kate. Kate, I am so sorry. Was wrong. 3 of us should live together from now on.
My husband suddenly apologized, probably because my father-in-law told him to.
The 3 of us? You mean no more dinner parties?
I asked.
Of course, if you don't want to go, go.
He replied. I could see my mother-in-law's face turn red after hearing my husband's words. She must be angry. I could tell because I have seen her face so many times. She must have hated the fact that Mai was not on her side. I laughed. Then I took the divorce papers out.
I wish I could hear those words before delivery. The dinner parties are more important than morning sickness and labor pains. Why don't you and your mother come to my place? Your mother, whom you love so much, looking very angry. I will live with my daughter alone. Please don't get involved with me as the rest of my life.
I told my husband with a smile.
I said I was sorry. She's my daughter, too.
Yes, he said. Sorry, so forgive him. David is compromising with you.
My husband and mother-in-law said they would be happy to help me with my project.
Oh, that's what you really think. Did you think that if you apologized, everything would go back to the way it was before? Don't underestimate me. It can't be fixed. I'm moving out today. Why don't you two just move in together?
Then my father-in-law also handed the papers to my mother-in-law.
That's it. You 2 live together without me. I can't believe what you did to Kate, though. You have experienced David. I don't know what would have happened had I not come home and called the ambulance.
That day, my father-in-law was working a day off and had gone to work in the afternoon. When he returned home in the evening, he found that his house had been burgled. My husband and mother-in-law were yelling at me as I was crouching. If my father-in-law hadn't come, I don't know if I would have been able to give birth safely. He felt he could not live with them after seeing them show no remorse at the birth.
Divorce?
I can't live with you guys anymore. The same goes for Kate. You 2 can't even understand that. You 2 are helpless.
My husband and mother-in-law were shocked when my father-in-law said that. Then my father came in with a cardboard box. He rented a truck. I packed my belongings with my father-in-law and carried them to the car. My husband and mother-in-law were being rude, but I ignored them. After I finished carrying all of my out, I said to my husband,
Don't you write divorce papers? In that case, my lawyer will contact you.
I left the house with my parents, my daughter, and my father-in-law. I thanked my father-in-law, and we went to my parents' house. Later, the divorce was successfully through the lawyer. I was able to get plenty of alimony. My father-in-law also got divorced, so he sold his house. My father-in-law told me that my mother-in-law and my husband, who had such good relations, were now blaming each other and fighting every day.
He said it would be impossible for live together.
My mother-in-law has been a homemaker since she got married, so she has almost no work experience. She has no choice but to rely on her. My husband had very little savings. Paying alimony, he barely has any money left. He's not sure if he can pay the rent he needs, to pay child support every month. They tried to rely on my father-in-law, but he changed his phone number, so they wouldn't be able to contact him. I raised my daughter at my parents'. My father-in-law and I still keep in touch. Once a month, he comes to visit a gift for my daughter. My parents also love my daughter very much and spoil her as much as they can. My daughter's smile and happiness make me happy.